The Henderson family reunion happened every 5 years, a tradition my grandmother had started back in the 1960s. 50 or 60 relatives would descend on my parents' house in Connecticut, filling every room with voices and opinions and the kind of forced cheerfulness that comes from people who are related but not necessarily close. I'd almost skipped this one. Almost claimed a work conflict, a research deadline, something that would let me avoid the inevitable comparisons. But my mother had called 3 times, her voice careful and pleading, and I'd given in. Because that's what you do when you're the family disappointment. You show up and take your medicine. My brother Cameron was holding court on the back patio, a beer in one hand and his phone in the other, showing photos of his corner office to a circle of impressed cousins. At 35, he was a vice president at an investment bank, pulling in $400,000 a year plus bonuses. His wife Jennifer wore designer clothes and talked about their ski trips to Aspen. Their kids attended private school. I was 32, and according to family consensus, I'd wasted every advantage I'd ever been given. PhD from MIT, Uncle Robert was saying, shaking his head as he looked at me across the dessert table. And what did you do with it? Locked yourself in a lab for 10 years. Research takes time, I said mildly, selecting a piece of apple pie. Research. He said it like it was a dirty word. Your brothers made millions. Bought a house in Greenwich. Meanwhile, you're still living in that cramped apartment in Cambridge making what, $60,000 a year? $72,000. Postdoc stipends have improved. $72,000, he repeated as if the number itself was an insult. With your education. It's criminal. Aunt Patricia leaned in, her voice dropping to that sympathetic tone people use when discussing tragedy. Have you thought about leaving academia? Going into industry? I'm sure Cameron could make some introductions. Real jobs. Real money. I like my work, I said. But is it sustainable? You're 32. You should be thinking about your future. A real career. A family. I didn't mention that my cramped apartment was actually a modest 2-bedroom that I'd purchased outright 3 years ago with a patent licensing deal. Or that my research had generated $12 million in licensing revenue for MIT over the past 5 years. Or that I'd turned down 6 industry positions offering $300,000 plus salaries because corporate research didn't interest me. There was no point. They'd decided who I was a decade ago, and evidence to the contrary just confused them. The problem, Cameron announced, loud enough to carry across the patio, is that Daniel never learned to think practically. He's brilliant, sure. But brilliant doesn't pay the bills. You need business sense. Street smarts. The ability to monetize your abilities. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. I tried to get him an interview at my firm years ago, Cameron continued. Entry-level position, nothing fancy. But he turned it down. Said he wanted to focus on his research. He laughed and others joined in. Focus on research. Like that's a career. Dad nodded from his lawn chair, his expression a mixture of disappointment and resignation. Wasted potential. That's what kills me. Daniel had every opportunity. Best schools. Brightest mind in the family. And what did he do? Buried himself in theoretical work that no one understands and no one needs. Physics research isn't exactly theoretical anymore, I offered. The applications are pretty concrete. Applications, Dad scoffed. You've been working on the same project for what, 8 years now? 10 years if you count my doctoral work. 10 years. Cameron made partner in 6. Different fields require different timelines. Excuses, Uncle Robert said not unkindly. That's the difference between your brother and you, Daniel. Cameron takes action. You make excuses. I took a bite of apple pie. It was good. Mom always made it with real cinnamon and a hint of nutmeg. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Checking your phone during a family gathering was the kind of thing that would generate commentary for the next 5 years. It buzzed again. And again. Popular today? Cameron smirked. Let me guess, one of your research buddies wants to discuss particle physics over lukewarm coffee? Actually, my research buddies and I discussed quantum field theory over excellent coffee, usually at the cafe near the lab that understood how to make a proper espresso. But again, no point in correcting. My phone started ringing. The ringtone I'd set for important calls. Not friends, not family, but the kind of calls you actually answer. Sorry, I said, pulling it out. I need to take this. Of course you do, Cameron said, rolling his eyes. Can't even get through a family reunion without work interrupting. I walked away from the patio into the quiet of my parents' garden. The number was Swedish. Stockholm specifically. My heart started beating faster. Dr. Henderson, I said, answering. Dr. Daniel Henderson? The accent was distinct, formal. Speaking. This is Dr. Goran Hansson, Secretary General of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. I'm calling to inform you that you have been awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. The world seemed to tilt slightly. I sat down on the garden bench, the one where I used to read as a kid, hiding from family gatherings even then. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? The Nobel Prize in Physics has been awarded to you for your groundbreaking work in quantum coherence and its applications to computing systems. The formal announcement will be made in approximately, I heard papers rustling, 7 minutes. I wanted to reach you personally before the news became public. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hansson. The ceremony will be held in Stockholm in December. Details will follow. Congratulations, Dr. Henderson. Your work has been transformative. Thank you, I said again because my brain had apparently forgotten every other word in the English language. We spoke for another minute. Logistics, timing, confidentiality until the official announcement. When I hung up, I just sat there staring at my phone. 10 years. 10 years of 18-hour days in a lab that smelled like ozone and burnt coffee. 10 years of failed experiments and breakthrough moments and the slow, grinding work of pushing human knowledge forward by inches. 10 years of family gatherings where I was the cautionary tale, the smart one who'd made dumb choices. And now the Nobel Prize. At 32, I'd be one of the youngest recipients ever. The work on quantum coherence had started as my doctoral thesis and had expanded into something that was now being called the foundation of practical quantum computing. The Henderson protocol was being implemented by research teams in 14 countries. IBM and Google had both licensed my work. The applications ranged from cryptography to drug discovery to climate modeling. But none of that had mattered to my family because it didn't come with a corner office and a 6-figure salary. My phone buzzed again. A text from Dr. Sarah Chin, my research partner. Daniel. Tell me you saw the news. Tell me you know. Then another from Professor Williams, my doctoral advisor. Nobel Prize. Nobel Prize. Call me immediately. Then my phone exploded. Texts, emails, calls all at once. The announcement had gone public. I walked back to the patio slowly, my phone still buzzing in my hand like an angry wasp. Cameron was mid-story about a successful deal, gesturing with his beer. So I told the client, if you want real returns, you need to take real risks. Daniel. Mom spotted me first. Your phone has been making noise for the past minute. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, I said. Aunt Patricia frowned at me. You look pale. Are you feeling all right? I'm fine. I just got some news. Bad news. Uncle Robert asked, suddenly concerned. Is it your research funding? Did they cut your grant? No, not that. Then what? Dad asked, his tone suggesting that whatever it was, it probably wasn't important enough to interrupt the reunion. I opened my mouth to speak, then closed it. How do you say it? How do you tell people who've spent a decade pitying you that you just won the highest honor in your field? I didn't have to. Cousin Maya, 23 and glued to her phone, let out a shriek that could probably be heard in the next county. Oh my God. Oh my God. Daniel. Everyone turned to stare at her. The Nobel Prize, she gasped, her phone shaking in her hands. Daniel won the Nobel Prize in Physics. It's breaking news on every site. CNN, BBC, New York Times. They're all reporting it. The silence that followed was the kind that feels physical. Like the air itself had been sucked out of the space. That's not possible, Cameron said flatly. Maya turned her phone around. On the screen was a CNN breaking news alert. Youngest Nobel Prize winner in decades. Dr. Daniel Henderson awarded Physics Prize for quantum computing breakthrough. There must be another Daniel Henderson, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. There's a photo, Maya whispered. It's him. It's definitely him. She held the phone up. My MIT faculty photo stared back at the crowd. The headline underneath read, Revolutionary work in quantum mechanics earns 32-year-old researcher science's highest honor. Uncle Robert's beer can slipped from his hand, clattering on the patio stones. The Nobel Prize? Mom's voice cracked. Daniel, is this real? I just got off the phone with the Secretary General of the Royal Swedish Academy, I said quietly. The announcement went public about 3 minutes ago. Cameron had his own phone out now, frantically scrolling. His face had gone from confident to confused to something approaching panic. This article says your work is the foundation of quantum computing. That companies like IBM and Google are licensing your protocols. The Henderson Protocol, yes. It's been licensed to 17 organizations so far. 17, he repeated numbly. The licensing revenue has been substantial, I added. Though most of it goes back into research funding. MIT takes a percentage, I keep some, and the rest funds my lab operations and graduate student stipends. How substantial? Aunt Patricia asked faintly. The total licensing deals have been valued at around $47 million over 5 years. My personal share is about $12 million, though after taxes and reinvestment, it's more like $6 million in actual liquid assets. The numbers landed like bombs. $12 million, Dad repeated, looking dazed. Plus my salary, which is actually $127,000, not $72,000. I was promoted to associate professor last year. And there's a $1.2 million cash prize that comes with the Nobel. After Swedish taxes, it'll be closer to $900,000, but still. It's a nice recognition. Recognition, Uncle Robert said weakly. You call the Nobel Prize a nice recognition? I mean, it's the Nobel Prize. It's the highest honor in physics. But the real value is that it validates the work. It means the research community believes the Henderson Protocol will have lasting impact. That's worth more than any dollar amount. Cameron was still scrolling, his face cycling through expressions I'd never seen before. This article from Nature says you're being called one of the most important physicists of your generation. Nature has been very supportive of the work. They published 3 of my major papers. 3 papers in Nature? Aunt Patricia sounded faint. That's almost impossible. It's uncommon, I agreed. But the work was solid and the peer review process confirmed its significance. That's how science works. Maya was reading from her phone now, her voice awed. It says here that your work could revolutionize everything from drug discovery to climate modeling. That the Henderson Protocol is the most significant advance in quantum mechanics in 30 years. That's generous. There are several other researchers doing equally important work. Dr. Chin, my research partner, deserves as much credit as I do. She's been instrumental in the practical applications. Dr. Sarah Chin? Cameron looked up from his phone. The physicist who won the MacArthur Fellowship last year? Yes. We've been collaborating for 6 years. He's brilliant. Should have won the Nobel too, honestly. The committee tends to under-recognize collaborative work. You're collaborating with a MacArthur Fellow, Aunt Patricia said, as if confirming this with herself. And you won the Nobel Prize. At 32. Technically, I'm receiving the Nobel Prize. The work that earned it was done over the past 10 years. It's a recognition of sustained contribution, not a single achievement. Mom was crying. Actual tears streaming down her face. Daniel, sweetheart, why didn't you tell us? Tell you what? That you were doing this. That your work was this important. I looked at her for a long moment. I tried, Mom. Remember when I published my first Nature paper? I called to tell you and you asked if it paid extra. Remember when MIT offered me the associate professorship? You asked if it came with better health insurance. Remember when IBM licensed my protocol? You asked if I was finally going to get a real job. The silence that followed was profound. You thought I was wasting my life, I continued gently. You thought I was brilliant but impractical. Smart but naive. You compared me to Cameron and found me lacking because my success didn't look like his success. That's not fair, Dad started, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? At last year's reunion, you introduced me to your friends as my son, the eternal student. At Christmas, Cameron gave a toast about how he'd finally made it big and everyone applauded. When I tried to talk about my research breakthrough, Uncle Robert told me to save it for people who understood that stuff. Cameron's hands were shaking. He set his phone down carefully. I called you a failure. You did. I said you'd never be successful. Multiple times. At this reunion, at Christmas, at your daughter's birthday party last summer when I couldn't make it because I had a presentation at CERN. CERN, Paya breathed. You presented at CERN? Twice. The European physics community has been very interested in the quantum coherence work. There's a team at CERN applying the Henderson protocol to particle accelerator data analysis. Uncle Robert had sat down heavily in a lawn chair. I told you to get a real job. You did. I said you were wasting your MIT education. Yes. I called your research a hobby. That was particularly memorable, yes. Aunt Patricia's phone started ringing. She looked at it, then at me, then back at it. It's Margaret. She wants to know if you're the same Daniel Henderson who won the Nobel Prize. She says her husband wants to meet you, he's on the board at MIT. Dr. Margaret Chin? Tell her yes, same Daniel Henderson. And I've already met her husband. He attended my promotion celebration last year. Your promotion celebration that we didn't know about, Mom said, her voice breaking. I invited you. You said you couldn't make it because Cameron's firm was having an event that night. Cameron flinched. That was just a client dinner. I know. But it was important to you, so the family went. My promotion wasn't important, so no one came. That's fine. That's how it's been. Dad's phone started ringing now. Then Aunt Patricia's again. Then several others all at once. The news was spreading apparently, and people were making connections. This is insane, Maya said, still scrolling. There are already 50 articles. Bloomberg has a profile. The Washington Post is running a feature. Time magazine wants an interview. My press liaison will handle all of that, I said. MIT has a whole team for managing media requests. They're probably overwhelmed right now. Press liaison, Cameron repeated faintly. You have a press liaison. The university provides one for faculty with high-profile research. It's standard for Nobel laureates. There are protocol things, media training, coordination with the Nobel Foundation in Sweden. Sweden, Mom whispered. You're going to Sweden. In December for the ceremony. It's in Stockholm. There's a banquet with the Swedish royal family, the award presentation, several speeches. It's very formal. Black tie. Can we come? The question burst out of her before she could stop it. To the ceremony? I looked at her carefully. Nobel laureates are typically allowed to bring several guests. Family members, colleagues, mentors. I'll be bringing Dr. Chin, Professor Williams, and a few other members of my research team. There are 8 spots available. 8 spots, she repeated, hope flickering in her eyes. I haven't finalized the list yet. I need to discuss it with the people who actually contributed to the work. The people who were there for the long nights and the failed experiments and the breakthrough moments. The people who believed in the research when it was just equations on a whiteboard. The implication hung in the air like smoke. We should have believed in you, Dad said, his voice rough. We should have supported you. You should have respected me, I corrected. Support is nice, but respect is essential. You didn't respect my choices because you couldn't see their value. You measured success in corner offices and salary packages, and when my success looked different, you decided it wasn't success at all. Cameron was reading something on his phone now, his face ashen. This article says your work is being compared to Einstein's early papers on quantum mechanics. That's hyperbolic. Einstein was working in complete isolation without modern tools or collaborative networks. My work stands on the shoulders of hundreds of physicists who came before me. The comparison is flattering but inaccurate. Still, he said quietly. Einstein. The physics community tends to use dramatic language when discussing breakthroughs. It generates public interest in science, which leads to funding, which leads to more research. It's part of the ecosystem. Uncle Robert was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. 10 years. You spent 10 years working toward this. I spent 10 years doing research I found fascinating. The Nobel Prize is a bonus. A wonderful bonus, but still just a bonus. The real reward was the work itself. The moment when an experiment confirms your hypothesis. The instant when you understand something about the universe that no one has understood before. That's what I was chasing. That's what I'm still chasing. And the money? Aunt Patricia asked. The $12 million from licensing? Is useful for funding research, buying equipment, supporting graduate students. I live comfortably. I own my apartment. I have savings. But I don't need a house in Greenwich or ski trips to Aspen. I need access to quantum computers and laser arrays and brilliant colleagues who challenge my thinking. That's what makes you happy? Mom asked, as if this was a revelation. That's what's always made me happy. I tried to tell you. I tried to explain why I loved physics, why I wanted to spend my life doing research, why the academic path made sense for me. But you kept comparing me to Cameron, kept asking when I'd get serious about my career, kept treating my work like a phase I'd grow out of. Cameron set his phone down and looked at me directly for the first time since the announcement. I've been an asshole. Yes. For years. Yes. I mocked your work. Your choices. Your life. Consistently and publicly, yes. Daniel, I'm sorry. I'm genuinely, deeply sorry. I studied him for a moment. I believe you. And I accept your apology. But Cameron, you need to understand something. The Nobel Prize doesn't make my work more valuable than it was yesterday. It doesn't make my choices more valid. It doesn't mean I was wrong to ignore your advice about investment banking or corporate research. It just means the world is finally recognizing what I've known all along, that the work matters. Still, he said, I should have been kinder. Supportive. I should have been your brother instead of your critic. Yes, I agreed. You should have. My phone rang again. My IT's number. I held up a hand apologetically. Sorry, I need to take this. It's the university. I walked back into the garden, answering as I went. Dr. Henderson. Daniel. President Morrison's voice was jubilant. Congratulations. This is extraordinary news. Extraordinary. The board is thrilled. The physics department is celebrating. We're already fielding calls from donors wanting to fund your research. That's wonderful, sir. Thank you. Listen, we need to coordinate. Press conference tomorrow at 10. Media training this afternoon if you're available. The Nobel Foundation will send protocols, but we'll need to manage the immediate response. Can you come to campus tonight? I glanced back at the patio where my family stood in shocked clusters, their phones out, their faces ranging from awed to ashamed. I'll be there by 7, I said. Excellent. And Daniel, this is historic. You've brought incredible honor to MIT. We couldn't be prouder. Thank you, sir. I'll see you tonight. When I returned to the patio, the atmosphere had shifted completely. People weren't just shocked anymore. They were calculating, recalibrating, trying to figure out how to interact with the family member who'd suddenly become someone important. I need to head back to Cambridge, I said. The university wants to coordinate the media response. Of course, Mom said quickly. Of course you do. Daniel, before you go, I'm so proud of you. We all are. I looked at her, at all of them. Are you proud of me? Or are you proud of the Nobel Prize? That's the same thing, Uncle Robert protested. Is it? Because yesterday I was wasted potential. Today I'm a Nobel laureate. But I'm the same person, doing the same work. The only thing that changed is external recognition. We see you differently now, Aunt Patricia admitted. That's the problem, I said gently. You shouldn't. You should have seen me the same way all along, as someone doing meaningful work that I love. The Nobel Prize doesn't validate my choices. It just makes them visible to people who couldn't see them before. Cameron stepped forward. For what it's worth, I'd like to make things right. I'd like to actually be your brother. The supportive kind. I'd like that too, I said. But it's going to take time. You can't erase 10 years of dismissal with one conversation. I understand. Can I start by taking you to dinner next week? Just us. No family audience. No performances. Just talking. I considered it. Hey, yeah. I'd like that. And the ceremony? Mom asked, her voice small. In Stockholm. I'll think about the guest list, I said. I'll let you know. That's fair, Dad said, though his voice was heavy with regret. That's more than fair. I walked to my car, a modest Honda that Cameron had once called disappointing, and loaded my bag. My phone was still exploding with notifications. Interview requests. Congratulations from colleagues. Messages from former professors and current students and researchers around the world. The drive back to Cambridge took 2 hours. I spent it on hands-free calls. With Dr. Chin, with Professor Williams, with my department chair. Everyone was excited, proud, eager to celebrate. When I finally got home to my cramped apartment, 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a study filled with books and equations on whiteboards, I just sat on my couch for a moment, staring at nothing. The Nobel Prize. 10 years of work, validated in the most visible way possible. My phone buzzed. A text from Cameron, "Proud of you, little brother. Sorry it took me this long to say it." Another from Mom, "We love you. We've always loved you. We just didn't understand. I'm sorry." One from Maya, "You're literally the coolest person I know and I can't believe I used to think you were boring. Can I interview you for my journalism class?" I smiled, set the phone down and walked to my study. The whiteboard was covered in equations. The next problem, the next question, the next mystery of quantum mechanics waiting to be unraveled. Because that was the thing. The Nobel Prize was wonderful. Historic. Life-changing in some ways. But tomorrow morning I'd wake up at 6. I'd make coffee. I'd review overnight data from the lab. I'd have a video call with Dr. Chun about the next phase of research. I'd spend 10 hours chasing the next breakthrough, the next moment of understanding, the next piece of the puzzle. Because that's what I did. That's who I was. Not the family disappointment who finally proved himself. Not the vindicated underdog who showed them all. Just a physicist who'd found problems worth solving and had built a life around solving them. The Nobel Prize didn't change that. It just made it visible to people who'd refused to see it before. I picked up a marker and started writing new equations on the whiteboard. The work continued. It always did.